Little Miss Helpful. Little Miss Helpful was one of those people who loves to help other people, but who ends up helping nobody. Do you know what I mean? I mean, for instance, like the time when one of Mr. Tall's shoelaces came undone. Mr. Tall with an undone shoelace. Now, if you're as tall as Mr. Tall, tying your shoelaces isn't the easiest thing in the world, as you can imagine. Let me help, cried Little Miss Helpful, rushing up. Here she is, rushing up to tie his shoelaces. Then somehow managed to tie Mr. Tall's shoelaces together, and he fell over. And if you're as tall as Mr. Tall, falling over hurts. Bang! Ouch, he cried, rubbing his head. There he is, falling over because his shoelaces are tied together. Let me help, cried Little Miss Helpful, and rushed off to get some sticking plaster, and rushed back and stuck it on Mr. Tall over his mouth. He said. He was trying to say take it off, but that's rather difficult to do with sticking plaster over your mouth. There he is, mouth all stuck shut. Little Miss Helpful looked at him with concern. Let me help, she cried, and ripped the sticky plaster off his mouth. Ouch, he cried. That hurt. Would you like me to get some cream for your sore mouth? She asked anxiously. No, he groaned. Go away. Now, do you know what I mean about people like Little Miss Helpful who help nobody? And there he is, yelling at Little Miss Helpful. Last year, in April I think it was, Mr. Happy woke up feeling not very well. The doctor had to be called, and he came to Mr. Happy's house, which is on the hill by the lake. There's Mr. Happy's house. Oh dear, said the doctor when he saw Mr. Happy. Measles. Mr. Happy's face fell. Now you're to stay tucked up nice and warm in bed and get lots of rest. And take this medicine 3 times a day, said the doctor, and went. Mr. Happy settled down to sleep. See, there he is, red spots and all, got the measles. He'd just fallen asleep when there was a loud knock at his front door. Oh dear, groaned Mr. Happy, and staggered off to open it. Can you guess who it was? Can't you? I've come to help, she cried. But, protested Mr. Happy. But nothing, cried Little Miss Helpful. Now off to bed with you while I get everything done. She looked around. This place needs a good clean, she said. There she is, Mr. Happy opening the door for Little Miss Helpful. Mr. Happy had just dropped off to sleep again when Mrs. Helpful poked her head around the corner of his bedroom door. Have you got a scrubbing brush? She asked. Poor Mr. Happy had to get up and show her where it was. Then he went back to sleep. There he is. He got the brush. Now he's going back to bed. Little Miss Helpful stepped back to admire the kitchen she'd just scrubbed and trod on the soap and fell over heels and got her head stuck in a bucket. And because she couldn't see where she was going, she walked into a shelf full of saucepans, which fell on the floor and made a terrible clatter. There she is, making a mess of everything. And because she couldn't see where she was going, Little Miss Helpful stepped in one of the saucepans and got it stuck on her foot. And because she had to hop, she fell against the refrigerator door, which flew open and everything inside fell out, all over Little Miss Helpful. There she is, saucepan on her foot, pot on her head, food everywhere. Poor Mr. Happy awoke with a jump and a terrible commotion. He groaned, got out of bed, went to the kitchen and opened the door. He couldn't believe his eyes. There, in the middle of a pile of broken eggs and a scrubbing brush and a rolling saucepans and a lot of water and spilt milk and squashed butter and bent saucepan lids and a piece of soap, sat little Miss Helpful with a bucket on her head and a saucepan on her foot. Help, came a voice from inside the bucket. There he is, Mr. Happy, with his measles, just dumbfounded. Mr. Happy seized the bucket and pulled as hard as he could. And pulled and pulled. There he is, trying to pull the bucket off the head of little Miss Helpful. Pop, the bucket came off the top of little Miss Helpful's head like a cork out of a bottle. Mr. Happy shot backwards like a bullet out of a gun. Crash! He went flying through the kitchen door. There he is, flying out the back paddock, still bucket got in his hand. He shot across the garden and straight through the garden hedge. He rolled down the hilly field behind the garden, faster and faster, and splash. He finished up in the lake, with the bucket in his hand, and a little figure with a saucepan on one foot came running, half hopping out of Mr. Happy's house. See, there he is, in the pond, and she's racing down behind him. Let me help, she cried. I think we know how that went. The end. Good night, sweetie. You have sweet dreams. I love you.